We have a words problem when it comes to remote viewing. We need new words with new meanings. The trouble with using existing terminology in the context of new remote viewing research is that the existing terminology is already associated with explicit meanings that may not be appropriate with the way we need to employ these new words. For example, Jung's collective unconscious is inappropriate for two reasons. First, there is no definitive understanding of how to interpret or extend Jung's usage, especially with regard to a non-physical interpretation of consciousness. And second, it seems awkward to label an aspect of awareness that seems very much awake as unconscious, as if it is knocked out. And with regard to transpersonal psychology, its associated terminology has been used with explicit reference to alternative psychological frameworks that may or may not apply here. For example, Ken Wilber argues that transpersonal bands can be located within a Vedantic scheme of carefully identified layers of consciousness, the so-called Vedanta psychology of sheaths. Also, others have associated very specific psychological or spiritual practices with their interpretations of transpersonal psychology, as with Stanislav Grof's holotropic breathwork. It is unlikely that the current users of such terminology would welcome alterations in the meanings of their language, something that we would end up doing when we connect these words with remote viewing. And then, with regard to physics, the concept of hyperspace is not wedded to a specific psychological or spiritual framework, nor is it associated with specific psychological or spiritual practices. But hyperspace has a distinct meaning among physicists, and their mathematical approaches to this meaning is crucial to its definition. Hyperspace can extend theoretically to an infinite number of dimensions, and theorists usually argue that it collapses to a smaller set of numbers, such as 192 and then down to 96, and then 48 and then 12 and so on. These dimensional collapses are called projections. Our four-dimensional reality is a further projection. One might call it a sub-projection. Also, while the idea of a projection as a mathematical concept is not entirely intuitive, one could nonetheless approach its usage through a related analogy, a hypersurface. You see, a hypersurface has one less dimension than the dimensions of the hyperspace within which it resides. For example, a line is a one-dimensional hypersurface in a two-dimensional plane. And a sphere is a two-dimensional hypersurface, since it has no thickness, in a three-dimensional space. The idea here is that you develop a set of mathematical rules that you apply within a defined hyperspace to collapse a certain number of dimensions into a fewer number of dimensions. Now, something living on or in the hypersurface with fewer dimensions theoretically might not be aware of the larger hyperspace within which it lives, such as an ant might not be aware of its larger three-dimensional surroundings if it is only walking around on the surface of a sphere, like a balloon. In a sense, consciousness can have various layers, one for each hypersurface layer, so to speak, and we could potentially say that this readdresses the Vedantic sheath concept, where the conscious mind perceives one layer of awareness while the other layers of consciousness might be associated with other dimensional hypersurface realms. These are the things that smart people ponder about. And I appreciate the fact that you are pondering these things along with me. Remember to subscribe and like, and I will see you next time.